Hello, this is Dave King. I'm your host here at the Triple Crown facility in Fort Collins, Colorado, where we have our ball fields and our tournament going on right now, the Power 5 Patriot. And we also have our lab here. We have a special guest today, head coach at UCLA National Championships, Kelly Inouye-Perez. And we're going to talk about the impacts of data in development predominantly and not as much in scouting, and a little bit about data as regards to what it means in selection of players right now. So, Kelly, when was the first time that UCLA became aware of, I'll just use the latest, the Moneyball stuff, the scrapes of data, of whether one player was better than others because of on base?
Well, I could say I could go way back to just bat speed. I think that was something way back that we would go to the Easton factory to be able to bat test, just to see how quickly people were getting the barrel through the zone. And for one thing, somewhat of some bat, being able to find the best product or the weapon for each athlete. But it was the thing, the faster you could swing your bat equated to distance on the ball. So that was something way back. With that being said, so much has evolved. The ability to truly have data, and they continue to find a way to make it more user-friendly, to make it accessible, for indoor and outdoor. Everyone's still looking for the best in-game data, which is always difficult to be able to capture. But so I can't even tell you the date, but it's something that every coach should be able to have an awareness. There's the old school just eyeball or sound, but the ability to get data is something that is truly being able to help separate some of the good from the great.
What data right now that means the most to you? What would you say now when I see that really helps me make a better decision about a recruit or about a development plan?
There's different things with pitching, being able to understand, spin accuracy, spin rate, being able to see the vertical and the horizontal breaks on the ball are things that are just pretty standard as far as just being able to see some of that information. I'm a catcher, so I felt like, I've communicated a lot with a lot of different companies on what I see on break versus actually being able to measure it. And I like that. I like the ability to say, I can see when a pitch is really breaking, and then to be able to get the data to be able to see just how much. I think that those things are important. Obviously, velocity is something that everyone is a standard in the game. When it comes to hitting, there are a lot of things. You would talk more to my hitting coaches that they would talk to that, but some basic things that we've learned that are not absolute, but understanding what exit velo is, just being able to see the strength of a hitter, there's a lot of different ways to be able to measure just their efficiency, like how their body moves. Are they sequencing well? So I've used a lot of different types of technology, I'll just say, to be able to get the data that we're looking for. And there's some of them are a lot really high level, and I've been in classes and I'm certified to be able to understand what charts look like and swing patterns from devices. And I get it, but it's one thing I think for coaches, and it's another thing for athletes to be able to take all this information and figure out how to translate it into how to improve.
Do you feel like on your staff that there's a need for that kind of translation talent that can take 20 numbers and say this one matters to your swing or this matters to your drop ball?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it is a teaching tool that I believe, as I said, I am a catcher and I have eyes and I have a way that I would coach or teach or what I would see or try to get an athlete to understand with spin or the ability to get the ball to break. But the ability, and I said this, for example, Rapsodo, being able to have a Rapsodo and have an iPad right there in a workout, so you can see the velocity, you could see the spin rate, you could see the spin accuracy, you could see the horizontal and the vertical break on the ball. It's not even necessarily over analyzing the athlete, but having that right there for an athlete to be able to see. You say you had 2 inches of vertical break. What do you think you could do to try to get 3? And that type of the accessibility to an athlete to be able to kind of see and try to beat the number is something that could be a great tool for some athletes. But for coaches, you absolutely should have the understanding of what some of those things are doing. That's why I say I think it's more of a coaching tool than it is straight to the athlete. Just showing them numbers may not be the best thing to have them look at. But as coaches, you should absolutely have an awareness. of what the basic standards are, and then being able to figure out how to get them to be better at that. That's what practice is every day.
What do you find your coaches wanting to do with the numbers? Do they want to have you make lineup decisions or game preparation decisions or development decisions? What's the heavy load?
I think it's a little bit of both. I have, first of all, Lisa Fernandez, works with our pitchers, and she loves being able to try to get them to get the spin accuracy to be at 100%. Like, just let's make sure we can find that rise ball spin and that drop ball spin, and what is it going to take to allow you to get that accuracy. So she loves being able to have the tool, because it's one thing to be able to say just do this, but then to be able to say do it and then see the number and figure out how it can improve. I mean, you'll see her high-fiving in the bullpen just on like, yeah, that was 100% drop ball. For example, Taylor Tinsley was a rise ball pitcher, and she really worked with Lisa on her drop and being able to understand the spin.
And so did it go hand in hand with what Lisa was saying
100%.
and what the data was then broadcasted
100%.
back?
And it helped her understand her hand position, her finish, being able to understand how her body needed to be, her body positioning, her, the tilt, all those things allowed for her to be able to understand how to throw a drop when she was predominantly rise and curve and change up. So it was a great tool to be able to reinforce the mechanics that Lisa was getting her to be able to understand.
Do you take any of the data sets or any of the data tools, and if you do, for workload measurement, so that you know what a player's legs look like and their arms look like coming into a week of practice or a big game, to know that they're higher or lower in their core strength? We
meet daily with our weight coach. So those types of things we're doing more in the weight room.
Are they then broadcasting back to you?
Yes.
This player's exhausted. We need to back down.
And whether it's on their vertical, or the output, that from just a lot of different moves. So we talk about the different moves of every position and what we're looking for with explosiveness in the legs, or even cardio tests to be able to understand, or even core strength testing. So yes, my weight coach is communicating with us daily, and I want our coaches to have that awareness to know when to go hard. And for us, ultimately, it's a season. How do you get through a season?
Trust data more than how do you feel, Sally?
I'll be honest. We do both. So
Okay.
we have a questionnaire that they fill out, because I want to get their input as well, which is a sleep. Are you sleeping? Are you recovering? Are you fueling? Did you fuel before you train? I mean, to how they feel. So we're getting their emotional IQ as well. I have them fill that out, and then I also get the data from our weight coach.
Now, is that weekly or daily?
Daily, every workout.
So is that on digital? A digital
It's on
log?
an iPad. Everybody has their own iPad, and then yes, they're inputting daily, which allows for our weight coach to work personally with every athlete instead of just laying out one plan for the whole team. There's personal, and then she gives them options on different types of lifts to be able to accomplish possibly the same thing. If you're talking about legs, you're talking about core, you're talking about stamina, she'll have options, and then she'll also set individual plans for each athlete to be able to see what they can accomplish. Somebody may be feeling great and they want to get after it, they want a PR, and there's others that are not fully recovered. So it is very customized daily.
I'm hearing a repetitive theme from a number of coaches about the fact that we're getting better at workload management. In fact, we're aware of it. We understand it. Let's talk about something that was really fun in data. And you guys put up a number that hadn't been seen. And so, what data sets caused the Megan and the Jordan and the Riley and then to get that, and not what they did as swings, but were there particular data ingredients in some of the decision making that you guys went towards?
Again, Lisa was in charge, and Misha were in charge of hitting, but one of the things that I know Megan Grant took a lot of pride in, and the team, was, and coming from Lisa in the direction was knowledge of the strike zone. So the ability to be able to see, track pitches and be able to have a knowledge of the strike zone.
So is that back on a TrackMan and saying that's just not a strike?
In a hit tracks that they have the knowledge of the strike zone, but then with it we have number lines, and through video you could see and track. But we do a lot of visual training, which allows for them to be able to literally call out where pitches are, less based on say a TrackMan, so to speak, but more in real time, just getting them to have knowledge. But for the hit tracks, that's literally the number one thing they would look at is, I'd see them in the batting practice, be able to look right up after our take and say, yep, oh, that was a strike, or they're constantly communicating with people behind.
So the strike zone data was huge.
Yep.
Is there any other ingredient? Because those numbers are prolific.
It's the knowledge is there. We weren't focusing on if you ask Lisa, and again, I'm going to say this, you would have to talk to Lisa on the specifics because she was the hitting coach. But there was no goals of we needed to get exit velos at this, or we needed launch angles to be able to do this. So to answer your question, it wasn't based on the data on how to do those things. It was more based on the ability to have knowledge of the strike zone and put a good cut. A lot of time focusing on movements, how the body moves for each individual, to getting them into their preference, but also with that, the getting their bodies in the right place and then getting their knowledge of the strike zone and being able to figure out which pitches would allow them to be successful.
You just kind of wandered into a word there, preference. So we got this motor preference going on right now, which, for lack of a better term, aerial and terrestrial right now to use. One is, we have a biomechanics lab here that we believe has the ability to 85-90% predict motor preference based on their biomechanical movement profile in the force plate and mocap environment. How were you able to pick their motor preference, and how important was motor preference selection in their training to you?
I'm going to say this. We were able to go through, the process of getting them to understand, how to identify what their motor preference was. Our coaches worked together with outside consultants to be able to do that, and allowed for them to try different things, to be able to figure out, where aerials should stand or terrestrials should stand, or bottom line, different ways to be able to set up and different ways to swing to get their bodies to be able to move most efficiently. And when you have athletes that understand that, then you could hear some of the, oh my God, I feel so much better. It's easier. My body moves in a different way. And that to me is where we are in transformational coaching versus transactional. It's like being with the athlete instead of just telling them what to do. And I think we're all, I can't speak for everyone, but I would say more and more information is allowing for every coach to be better. And this type of information allows for us to be able to figure out how that athlete moves, very similar to sequencing. Every athlete is going to sequence, and they could sequence more efficiently. They could sequence for more power, for more efficiency, for more accuracy, all those things. But the knowledge of being able to understand, bottom line, how bodies move, which is, I think, a big part of why hitting is just elevating to a whole different level. Wow. Is you're getting hitters to feel comfortable, you're getting hitters to be able to have knowledge of the strike zone, you're getting hitters to be able to understand the game planning and all the information that's out there. When you talk about the information that's out there and the data, I think that's one of the biggest things that's happening is you have charts and so much information on what every pitcher's tendencies are and what their percentage first pitch strikes are. And the flip side, hitters that are swinging early in a count, what their, there's so much information. So as a result, back to the original question, should coaches know that? Oh, absolutely. Everyone's using it against you, so you better be using it for yourself and against opponents.
What's the reaction of the 25 athletes on your program? Are they becoming more data acceptant? Or are they saying, I'm reluctantly going there? Or how does it feel to you? What's the transition?
Well, I'm going to say a big part of our record-setting year was that, their ability to work with my staff. My staff was elite in game planning and getting the information, but it was the athlete's ability to receive the information and trust it, which allowed for us to be able to break records this year. Because we had some young athletes. The Megan Grants and Jordan Wooleries are professional hitters. They literally are. And they've gotten better throughout their career at UCLA, playing as a freshman through their senior year. But we had some freshmen that had never been on the stage that were putting up some monster numbers, and that was getting them to be in preference, but then also getting them to be able to understand how to take the information and then to be able to apply it. And I really credit our coaches with the ability to build that, because it's one thing to say just do it or here's the information. It's the other to get every individual to understand how they're going to perform at their best. And I truly believe that combination, the information of the data that was out there on how to game plan, on how to beat an opponent, combined with the ability to have coachable athletes and the relationship and trust that was built, allowed for this team to thrive on the biggest level.
So your summary there would be that their trust and the relationship allowed data to
100%.
come to the table and
100%.
it'd like be eating a strange meal. I'll try that because I trust you.
Well, I mean, it was that, but it was the training that led up to that as well. So to prepare for, if here's the data says this area of the strike zone, or this type of pitch, or this type of spin, whatever it is that we were facing, my staff did an outstanding job of training every zone, every pitch, every velocity. I mean, the amount of training and tracking pitches, what they did to prepare, and therefore allowed them to take the information to be able to execute. It's one, everyone has information, but your ability to translate that into your training and building the trust to be able to execute, I believe my staff did that clearly better than we've ever done
It
at
was
UCLA.
exceptional.
Yeah,
Exceptional
and
year.
it was the combination of all of
Let's
it.
go to a data point that's not as fun. So we're moving into the space of baseball in a lot of ways and other sports. And so the dreaded WAR number, the wins above replacement, which basically gets converted and becomes a dollar value and it gets monetized. How do you feel the portal and the dollars in the portal and the monetization? Is it starting to get tied to a production number like baseball? Because if you didn't have a WAR of this, you're probably not going to get a that. And if you were a minus WAR, you're probably wins above replacement. You probably can expect a paycheck in this area. So do you feel that data is, in other words, do we know enough about data in the monetization for these players in this era, or are we just on the front edge of trying to figure this out?
I think we're on the front edge. I mean, there's not enough information for me as a coach who's been in the game for this long to be able to say that the data from 1 or 2 years of somebody is going to be able to equate to this. Okay, now it's people's jobs in Major League Baseball and they have a ton of scouts that are watching a ton of games to be able to get a lot of information. So, and they have all this. I think for a college season, your ability to be able to gain information and be able to say someone in their first year is going to equate to this in her senior year, it's not always the case. And there's some very obvious people that you don't even really need data to say that Megan Grant is a professional hitter. But the value that you could put on that, I think those are things that we're starting to learn in our sport of how you would monetize the value of somebody. So I don't have the answer.
It's really, and I know we're all in a conflict because it's really good that we're finally to a point that our great impact female athletes can expect potential career checks. We didn't think it was going to happen at the collegiate level. We didn't think we'd be first to figure this out, but it looks like, we have a neutralized pay system in AUSL, which says this is what you are, more of a tenure track system. And now, but here we have a compensation-based free market agency going on before we stabilize somewhere. And data will have a big bearing on our decisions, I think.
It's there. And so I'm not going to debate that. And information and values and all those things, absolutely. There's always going to be people that are smarter and have more information that are going to find ways to be able to put an actual value on something. So we're there. It's happening. I can't say that there's a standard just yet, but I do believe that our sport we're there. It's professional sports at the collegiate level. So the ability to get that information and the big decisions that are and the investments that are getting put into the athletes, it would be nice if there was a standard.
Well, I've been working on models and trying to figure out if I was a power forward and I was on the top half, is there 4 players, 6 players, 9 players that are impact status that designate a WAR value that compensates above the basic scholarship? Is there 4? Is there 4 at mid-major? And so I think trying to figure this out
and I think it's all there. And if you have the bankroll, the payroll, to be able to do that, then that's a great conversation to have. But you're seeing we are a collegiate sport, and there are definitely programs that have a different payroll. So with it's not a standard. So you can get all the information all you want, but it's not as easy for you to just say everyone because of this, then that, based on what you think. So we're still able to bring people in for scholarships and understand that there's value beyond just the number that you're going to say, because everybody's payroll is different. And I can say that everybody knows this. This is not a secret at the end of the day. But yeah, if we got to that point, then we would want to be like a professional organization that has, a general manager that understands here's the salary of the organization of what's actually happening.
Here's our bucket size.
But we're not doing that at the
No.
collegiate level. So you
No,
you could say numbers all you want. Good for you. Everyone has different situations, and everyone thinks everyone has a different situation. But with that being said, we value the athletes as people. College is about getting an education. College is about an opportunity to win a championship and to play on a big stage. We're on TV now. You're getting opportunities to be able to network and promote yourself. Name, image, and likeness is real. If you bring value, and your name, image, and likeness should be rewarded. Obviously it's connected to rev share when people talk about actually bringing in revenue, but name, image, and likeness is something that is real. I was great friends with Ed O'Bannon, who was the athlete at UCLA who won the championship and went and got into the lawsuit with EA Sports and lost at that time. So with that, his name, image, and likeness was used for all the video games, and he didn't get anything from that. So I understand the value of name, image, and likeness. And as soon as it was passed that you were able to benefit from that, I think it's great. But that turns into a assumption that everyone should just get
And I really
paid.
don't want to go down the payroll and whether we should pay or we shouldn't. I'm just saying there's a lot of data applications out there that we can use data to make better decisions. And in all probability, data will be used for us and against us
It's
in
facts.
this space based on compensation of players. And then to me, the main data point that I want to hit hard on that I believe the most in is development, which means that I'm here, I can measure these things about me. Do you believe that that's the main thing that can happen with data, is that I can get better? You give me
of
some
course.
information that's hard-tracked and accountable, I can get a game plan and get better.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think any information is powerful, and you've got to be a learner. You have to have a growth mindset to figure out what. So any information that you can get that can help you figure out how to get just 1% better in anything that you're doing is 100% the way to be able to become the best of the best. So 100% data can help you. Over-analyzing can take you in the wrong direction. So your ability to find a balance. How am I going to be a learner? How can I have a growth mindset? How can I take in information and not have me perceive it as because I'm not like so-and-so, therefore I'm not great? But really trying to focus on yourself and how you can be 1% better, I think is the most valuable tool you can have. And then how coaches present it and everybody presents it, I think is very important too. To be able to say, just because so-and-so does this, you should do that, I think is horrible coaching. Your ability to get that athlete to say this is where you are and that you want to get 1% better, I think that, and be the best version of you is something that should be very powerful language, because there's a lot of people that get information and just throw it in front of people and say, this is what you should be like. And I think that's very dangerous. Your ability to want to be better, a better version of yourself, is the best way to go through life, not based on what other people are. So I think data could be used if it's used in the right way.
Coach, I appreciate it. This is Dave King at Triple Crown Studio with our guest, Kelly Inouye-Perez, national championship coach from UCLA, and we really appreciate the insights on data. Thank you, Coach.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.